What's going on, Colts Nation? I appreciate you joining me for another video where today we are finally talking about all of your guys' options, all of my options for free agents that we want to bring in. Where does that work in the salary cap? What do we have to do to be able to make those numbers work? And I got to say, there was a fairly large discrepancy between your numbers and my number, which I thought would happen. I'm one person. I know as I'm going through each of the picks where I want to spend the money. I knew who I wanted, how much generally they were going to want, and where I wanted to spend the money. For Colts Nation, I expected everybody to want the best player from every category, and that's essentially how that ended up working out, which obviously is going to cost a lot of money. So as we go through this, and just know I don't have any insider information. I went back, I looked at what these guys have made throughout their careers, the production that they've had. The situation. I took their situations into account. I took the market into account, their age, what they should be worth, and just did my best guess. And I could be a little off on some of these numbers, but my best guess on what these guys are going to be worth. And this is where we stand. So the projected cap is actually going to be more than what we thought. I think the original space we were supposed to have was supposed to be 31 point something million. That has gotten bumped up, where now the projected cap number for the Colts of available cap is going to be $35,247,239. Okay, so that's the number that we're running off of throughout all this. Now, for quarterback, of course, you guys wanted Justin Fields. I wanted Marcus Mariota. Both those guys should be probably roughly the same. Any quarterback that we bring in is likely to have, a certain amount of guaranteed money, and then some starter incentives, some starter guarantees. Like, hey, if you end up having to be our starter for X amount of games, and you play X amount of snaps throughout these games, like, you're going to get a couple million more dollars, right, for just having to be a starter for us instead of just a backup. There's going to be some numbers that have to be played with. The overall cap number is going to be very interesting when you have to work a contract like that. You're giving more guaranteed money, so you're going to have to. They're going to be more against the salary cap. So overall, backup quarterback is going to cost us a decent chunk of money. But what I have for Justin Fields is $7 million. What I have for Marcus Mariota is $6 million. And again, that's just the salary. So even the numbers that I ran, just using the 7 million and 6 million, those could be more. You could see a total salary cap hit of $9 or $10 million or $11 million for either of those guys, for coming in and, hey, we might need you to be a starter. Just know that's the situation we're looking at. But I did use the 7 mil for Justin Fields and 6 mil for Marcus Mariota as what I used for the math into the entire equation. Okay, and then I looked at 2025 running back, which is what Colts fans wanted by a pretty large margin, and then I honestly, I want the 2025 draft pick, especially because that means even less money. But I have Kareem Hunt, just devil's advocate here, and also to get a proven backup back there that's not named Tyler Goodson. So I went with Kareem Hunt. Now, I'd be fine if we also went Kareem Hunt and 2025 NFL draft. You combine the numbers for those, it shouldn't be too bad. Now, if we drafted a running back in the first round, by chance, right, Mr. Ascengenti, then, hey, the number for running backs would be way up from what I have. But I have third round. I don't know if we're going to take a running back. If we do take a running back, when will we take one of the running backs? There are some good ones in this draft, but you don't want to wait too long. But third round is actually a little over a mil. I just put a mil to make the math easy. It is slightly over $1 million for a third round pick. So at least that was the first pick of the third round is what I had seen. Value might drop off pick to pick. I know the minimum for NFL rookies is $795,000 for anyone that's drafted. But for all intents and purposes, $1 million for a third round running back, who could be any of the running backs that you guys know of. I honestly don't know very many of the running backs. I still haven't done my draft homework at this point. But Kareem Hunt, I have his value at $4 million. He didn't play for the Chiefs the entire season, so he didn't sign a full contract there. But his money with the Browns is what I was looking at, and production and his role and what his role would be with us, and us not being a winner. Right, but he would come in and help, so you pay a little more there. So I think $4 million, at least for Kareem Hunt, is a number there. So you guys, seemingly from my estimation, paying more for a quarterback, but I'm paying more for a running back. And so far, really, I'm probably paying more at this point. Then we go to tight end. So overall, I am paying more on the offense than you guys by a couple $1,000,000. But you guys chose Mike Gesicki. I chose Zach Ertz. And I think this conversation is interesting because it could go one of two ways. I think, okay, so the value that I saw from their past contracts, what they've done, their role, again, us not being a contender right now is going to play into that. Anthony Richardson maybe not being the guy, going to play into, hey, maybe we have to pay some free agents more. So just remember, I don't want to say that every time here. Just know that's the situation. As we go through, some of these guys, we're going to have to pay more than other teams would if we wanted a chance to get these guys. But I have Mike Gesicki at $4 million plus. And I think he could possibly go over $4 million, especially if we had to sign him. But then Zach Ertz, I have him at $4 million or less. I could see him signing somewhere for less, but if he comes to us, like his last contract, I believe I saw was $3 million with the Commanders last year. So with us, because of the situation, then $4 million or less for Zach Ertz. But I could see us having to pay $4 million. So that's the same. We're different tight ends, paying the same. That's how I see that with our tight end picks here. And then we actually agreed. The only thing we agreed on here, well, some of these I did play devil's advocate on, but nonetheless, the one that we agreed on here on the poll was Trey Hendrickson, who is still under contract for 2025. Obviously not a free agent. This is trade. We had 3 free agent choices, and then, hey, do we just say screw it and we trade for Trey Hendrickson and put him on the other side of Latu? And Colts Nation was down with that idea. In the video we had about it, they were down with it. In the poll, very down with it. So $18.67 million is what he's making next year. That's at this point non-negotiable. That's just what he's making. And if he gets traded, he's probably not going to want to take less money. And even in my equation, that works. In my equation, that absolutely works. Things might have to be restructured between this player and that player to make it work in your guys' case. But nonetheless, Trey Hendrickson, again, $18.67 million against the cap there. And that's against the cap. That's not his yearly average. That's against the cap. So remember, even the numbers that we have and the way contracts work out, some of these guys, their numbers could be higher just because of the way contracts work, and then they're actually more against the cap than their average annual value. And just remember that also. It's a complicated world. I'm not going to act like I know how it all works. I just know that that's the thing that happens as I look through different contracts. Some guys are like that and some guys aren't. It's really just how the contract is constructed to try to help better help the team and how their current situation is, how they think their future is going to be, those sorts of things. But as we move on here, we go to the linebacker, and this is where I actually, depending on how things go and who we let go, which we will go over after we go through all these numbers, I might be able to be on the same page as you guys. I originally wasn't because I think I was going to spend too much money here, but the way things can work out, I can be on the same page with you guys and still have a little bit of room to bring in the rest of our rookies, to bring in depth at different positions, which is what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to revamp the special teams because there are so many guys leaving. I'm going to have to revamp some of the depth on the team. And the way mine worked out, kind of worked out perfectly, where we can bring in some more bottom of the roster type guys and try to be as good as possible. But again, linebacker, you guys chose Dre Greenlaw. I chose Isaiah Simmons. And Dre Greenlaw, coming off his injury with the contract that he had before, which was $8.25 million for 2 years, is the contract that he signed with the Niners. So coming off of the injury, even though the market's going up, I think 1 year, $8 million, good offer for Dre Greenlaw. Somebody else somewhere else might pay him more, but linebackers aren't really making money like that. As I went and looked at their market, not as valuable as I thought they were. Honestly, there are some high value linebackers, but most of them not really. Dre Greenlaw falls somewhere in the middle of that, and I think he'll get a contract equal to that value and try to prove to people that he's going to come back off that injury and be himself again on a 1-year contract. Then there's Isaiah Simmons. I just wrote $2 million because, hey, that's what he went and got with the Giants. And his production last year was way down. I don't know what his situation was. I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to the Giants. But Isaiah Simmons' production way down. Now, production down in 2023 as well after Jonathan Gannon got there. But the year before, 2022, I mean, he went off. 99 tackles. He had interceptions, pass deflections, sacks, did everything. That was when it seemed like he figured it out. So I think he's a guy where you and it's been obvious since his rookie year. You have to find a place that he can fit in your defense. He can only be used in certain people's defenses. And the way Lou Anarumo runs a multiple defense, I don't know if he would be an every down linebacker for us, and I don't think he would need to. I think if you could get Isaiah Simmons $2 million, you have him and Jalen Carley's exchanging in that nickel package, right? And have them both on the field at different times, even with Zaire Franklin, and go a little heavier, then I think that would be an acceptable option. I think he's a freak athlete. I think Lou Anarumo, being, the mad genius that some of his players say he is, or the mad scientist, whatever they say, I think Lou Anarumo could find something and find a way for him to be extremely valuable to us in the way that Kyle Hamilton is extremely valuable to the Baltimore Ravens. Now, Kyle Hamilton, very good. I'm not making that comparison of the two. But I do think you find the right situation for Isaiah Simmons, you get the best value in free agency at the linebacker position, and it's not even close. So that's my thoughts on that. And again, cost less money than Dre Greenlaw is going to cost. But then as we move on here, this is one where I could agree with you guys, and if I did, the money would almost work. We'd have to restructure in some ways. But at the end of the day, you guys have Charvarius Ward, who is at least $20 million, in my opinion, with the way the market's gone up since he signed his contract with San Francisco. And looking at, 24 mil for the first couple, Jalen Ramsey at the top of the cornerback market, but there are a couple of them making 24 mil, a few of them over 20 mil. Corners that Charvarius Ward definitely better than, that are making 18, 19 million. I think Charvarius Ward, for where he's at in his career, could sign a 3-year contract. Last year, no guaranteed money, but to have 20 mil a year, I think it could be a large contract, large cap hit in the way that would work, right? And so those first couple years, cap hit not going to be great. Or actually, you know what? The way that normally works, having the no guarantee money at the end, it would go, still a big cap hit in year 1, but a smaller cap hit, and then it would grow in years 2 and 3, larger cap hits before you get to no guaranteed money. So maybe I don't know. Again, NFL contracts work in weird ways, but nonetheless, $20 million is what I have the value for Charvarius Ward, and that's the math I use for you guys. I have Isaiah Rodgers. Ended up switching my pick. I ended up with Isaiah Rodgers, $2 mil max, right? A guy that bringing him back to Indy would be interesting. A lot of things to talk about with that, but a guy that has fought through adversity, right? Made a terrible mistake, but fought through adversity. He came back. He was a part of the Eagles, like actually a part of the Eagles winning the Super Bowl, and had an impact there. And I just don't know what his value is going to be in free agency. How do other teams see him with what he did in the past? Will other teams value him less because of that? Probably. And then when it comes to us, like, what do we have to pay him more to come back into the building? But I think he'd be a good option for depth. Now, if we could work it in a way, right? Say we don't get Trey Hendrickson, we don't make the trade for Trey Hendrickson, which is probably pretty far-fetched. So you take that 18.67 mil off the table, then all of a sudden you go get Charvarius Ward and Isaiah Rodgers, add that with Jalen Jones, Kenny Moore, Juju Brents, all of a sudden cornerback room is stacked. So I think that would be a good option too. If Trey Hendrickson doesn't work, you make your secondary as good as you possibly can, and then all of a sudden your pass rush starts doing a little better anyways without Trey Hendrickson. So we'll see what happens there. Choices. We're here early in the offseason. There's so many choices of what could happen. And then as we finish up here, Javon Holland at safety is who you guys wanted. $16 million plus for him is what I think his value is going to be. Justin Reed, who I think has proven himself, and I think he's going to be ready to try to get top value in the safety market. He's a little older, and I think that'll affect his contract, but still 15 mil plus for Justin Reed is where I'm going. So essentially the same right there on defense. I'm completely fine with spending money. I'm actually surprised I didn't spend more money because I've been talking about, hey, this is where I'm willing to spend money. Definitely the secondary. At safety specifically is where I want to spend money and make sure we spend money, and then just try to find how we can do it otherwise. Now, with everybody you guys want to bring in, the total number for the money spent in free agency for you guys, and my best estimate is at $74.67 million in total free agency and the Trey Hendrickson trade. When you look at mine, which includes the Trey Hendrickson trade, 49.67 mil spent. Okay. And again, you have to have room for draft picks. You have to have room to fill the rest of the roster. You guys are already at $74.67 million. Now, this is another spot that we're at. Okay. When you start looking at the $35.247 million in available cap space, projected cap space coming up, how do you get more? Trade or release Braden Smith. Open up $16.75 million. Samson Ebicom, get rid of him. $7.49 million opened up. And then get rid of Raekwon Davis. Open up another $6.49 million, which you get rid of those three players, which seems at this point very probable, seems like our best course of action. All of a sudden, we have $65,977,239 to spend in free agency this year. So opens it up a lot more, makes a lot of this more probable. And again, because Trey Hendrickson, as nice as that would be, it just doesn't seem very likely, even with Lou Anarumo in the building now. In my opinion, you take that off, my numbers and your numbers definitely work. And then we can get way more aggressive in free agency for sure. So if that was the route that we went, right? If we change course to get, because again, that's the only poll we agreed on was, hey, let's trade for Trey Hendrickson. But if you were to take that one out, it would open things up a lot for us, to be completely honest with you. We'd be able to do a lot more. We'd be able to get more pieces to fill the roster. You just wouldn't have that high level talent. But unless you could use that money to go get high level talent in the secondary, again, getting Charvarius Ward and an expensive safety and another one of the corners that we talked about. If you can get another one of those guys, Isaiah Rodgers, DJ Reed, Asante Samuel Jr., find somebody else to bring into that room, all of a sudden we're deep on the defensive side of the football going into the draft. And then if we can do that and we can find depth in the secondary and free agency, really good depth in free agency, then we can go into the draft and we can be more aggressive about getting a running back, or be more aggressive about getting a tight end and not going so heavy on the offensive or on the defensive side. You can focus a little bit to try to get maybe offensive line depth, just like you did this past year, finding some guys in the middle rounds that are going to be staples for us in the future. Hey, maybe we can go find guys that if they had to step in, they can step in, but guys that we can feel good about being good offensive line depth for us in the future, behind the guys that we drafted to be our future. So a lot of possibilities going forward. Again, we can, just releasing three guys, we can go from 35.247 mil to 65.977 mil in cap space, available cap space. So we'll see what happens This was a fun exercise. I appreciate you guys participating in the poll. If you guys never see any of the community posts, you just want to see what's going on there, go to the channel page, which is just clicking the icon next to the Colts Syndicate name, and then you go scroll all the way over, and all the way to the right, it's going to be a tab called Posts. You can see all the community posts there. I like having your guys' opinions. I like you guys participating on polls. Good way to keep you guys engaged, and for me to be able to get exactly how you're feeling about a specific topic in quick time. So just pay attention to all that. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you continue to get notified anytime we drop any more content. Got plenty coming up with Combine happening, free agency coming up, the draft right after that. So a lot of stuff happening throughout this offseason. A lot to discuss as Colts fans. Want you guys around for all love, and of course, appreciate you stopping by for another video. And as always, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and go Colts.